All right, welcome back to day number 21 of 30 Days of Q&A. And today I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper into this idea of honing in your lookalike audiences based on your most engaged fans. There's a lot of people who felt like their biggest challenge was not having the resources, either financially or time-wise, to be able to invest into their music in order to be successful. And the bottom line is that we all have the same amount of time in our days. Everyone has 24 hours in their days. And therefore, how we choose to spend that limited amount of time that we have makes all of the difference in terms of what kind of results that we get back. You might have heard of this idea before called the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule basically states that in any system, 20% of the cause results in 80% of the results. And so what that means is, let's say that you made $100,000 over the course of the last year. Then according to this 80-20 rule, that would mean that $80,000 came from 20% of your fan base. And so if you had 10,000 fans, for example, and you made $100,000, that would mean that 2,000 of your fans were responsible for roughly 80%, so $80,000 of that income. And the thing with this rule is that it also continues to break down. So if you had 10,000 fans, that would mean 400 of your fans were responsible for something like $64,000 of your revenue over the year, with just 400 of those fans. And then you could break it down even further from there. And the bottom line is that if you keep breaking it down, then what happens is you realize that a very small percentage of your followers are the ones who are really supporting you. And part of the power with lookalike audiences and with improving your targeting is that if you really focus in on that small group and you create lookalike audiences based on those people, then I guarantee you, out of the billions of people that exist on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these platforms, you can find at least 1,000 fans who are true fans of you and your music and would invest at least $100 over the course of the year. All right, so you have the true fans theory: 1,000 fans, $100 per year, $100,000 per year income. And so it's just a matter of finding those people. And so I want to share the system that I would recommend creating so that you can improve your lookalike audiences systematically as you grow your audience, so that you're always reaching the people who are most engaged based on your existing audience. Honestly, this idea can apply to your entire life. This idea can change your entire life when it comes to the 80-20 rule, because it also applies to how you spend your time. If you look at your past year, let's say that you went all in on your music career, and for 1 year, you invested all of your time and you got your first 10,000 fans over the course of the year. Then if you're looking at how you spent your time over that year in order to reach those 10,000 fans, about 1/5 of the things that you did that you spent your time on would have accounted for the majority of your results. And so if you take this principle and you also apply it to your life and just how you spend your time, the truth is that you're probably spending a lot of time doing things that only give you mild results, or they're not really moving the needle. And if you actually do less, you can actually get better results, because if you're doing less and you stay focused on the right things, that gives you more space. It gives you more awareness to be able to actually go deep on the things that you're doing. It's almost a broken piece of our society or our culture right now, is this idea that we need to do more. It's like more and more and more. We need to always be doing more. We need to always be busy. And there's almost this sense that if we're not overwhelmed, if we're not busy, if we're not doing something at every moment, then we're being lazy, or we're not being productive, we're not getting things done. And so a lot of times we feel like we need to be checking our email every 5 minutes, and we need to be doing X, Y, Z. And we're like hamsters running on a wheel. And the truth is, if you stopped doing all of that stuff and instead you just asked yourself, what are the few things that I could be doing that are actually going to move the needle? And you do those 20% of things. And then you could also outsource, you could hire help to be able to set up the other 80% of things. Then that's really how you get leverage on yourself and on your time. And that's how, with less time, with less energy, you can get better results than someone who's expending 5 times as much time and energy doing the same things that you could be doing as well. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And one exercise that really helped illuminate this for me was writing down on a piece of paper. Maybe I can even do a little bit of a demonstration here. I think this is a really powerful exercise for everyone to do. And this is something that it's kind of like taking a shower. It's not just something you do once and it's like, all right, cool, I'm good for the rest of my life. It's like, no, like this is something that you probably need to come back to every so often to check in with how are you spending your time. When it comes to the 80-20 rule, it never ends. As soon as you dial in your most important things, you can go deeper into the 80-20 rule. You can say, okay, what's the 20% of that? So you can really find that sweet spot, find that genius zone. And so what I would recommend if you want to do this exercise, to free up your time so you can be less stressed out, have more energy, feel better, but at the same time be more productive and more successful while spending less time, then this is how you can do it. So you start out by you're drawing a triangle on a piece of paper. And you divide it into different sections. And basically what you want to do is you want to think about how you're spending your time. And you actually could audit yourself. So you could have just for a week where you keep track of every single hour that you're spending throughout your day so that you can actually budget, okay, where's your time going? And once you do that, then what you can do is separate it into these different categories of how much would this cost as an hourly task to hire someone for this? What's the value of this activity that you're doing? And so the reason that this is really valuable is because one, anything that you find that you're doing in this zone, which if we're honest, this is where a lot of us spend a lot of our time when we're doing things like, I don't know, watching TV or on social media, browsing, skipping through things. These are under $10 an hour tasks, right? These aren't productive at all. You're not getting anything from any of these activities. And so if you can identify what are all the things that you're doing in this tier, and then you can consciously say, wow, okay, I'm going to stop doing those things. Then now you've already freed up extra hours in your day that you can invest into doing things that are a higher value. You can basically go up the chain here. And I know for me, let's start with Paradise Fear. So for our music, under $10 an hour, this would just be sitting on our butts, watching TV, watching movies. These would be things that aren't generating value, right? $25 an hour, all the way up to $100 an hour. And if you really want to make this even better, you can go all the way up to like $1,000 an hour. So let's actually add one extra tier here. This doesn't look very pretty, but you get the idea. So $1,000 per hour. So for us, the $1,000 per hour activities were playing private parties, playing private shows, or playing high-end gigs that are paying us over $1,000 per hour. And what that means is that if all we did was just focus on doing this, and then we hired out other people to help do these things. Let's say $10 an hour might be personally responding to comments on our YouTube profile, for example. Then you might realize, wow, like maybe I should hire a team member. Maybe I should ask some of our fans if they want to be involved in the band, if they want to help us respond to these comments that are coming in. So rather than you spending your time doing these $10 an hour activities, you just stay focused on how do I spend as much time as possible on my genius zone, on doing the $1,000 an hour activities. And for me personally, when we started Modern Musician, for example, I didn't have a lot of $1,000 an hour activities that I could do. But what those things ended up being was having private one-on-one calls with artists that were a good fit to work together personally for coaching. And so I would do these strategy sessions, which is basically a free coaching call. And then about 20% of people that I did a strategy session with would be a good fit to join a $5,000 program, which means that this was roughly a $1,000 an hour call. And so therefore, if this is my highest value activity, this is what's generating the most value, the most productivity, then I should, if I'm not doing strategy sessions, then almost nothing else matters. This is the number one most important thing, is doing as many of those strategy sessions as possible, doing as many free coaching calls as possible. So that's one example for client-focused business. But for you as a musician, it might be something similar. In fact, I think that for most artists, one of your highest value activities, one of your highest value use of your time is going to be structuring a system that allows you to get on one-on-one Zoom calls with the right people who are interested in getting things like custom songs or private shows, private parties. And if you offer that for $2,000 for a private party and 10% of people who have that call with you end up getting one, which is a pretty low rate of people who would get one. But let's say it's 10%. Then for a $2,000 offer, that means that you're getting paid $200 an hour before that session. And not only that, but you're building a deeper relationship with those fans as you're getting on those calls. So that means that if you're looking at how should I maximize my day, how should I maximize my output, then that would be a very high value activity to do, is actually hopping on those calls. And so this is really customized based on you and based on your situation. I don't know you. I don't know what you're spending your time doing right now, but I would highly encourage you to think about what are you currently doing with your time throughout the day, and just bucket it into these different segments and use different hourly wages based on what makes sense for you, based on where you're at. For me personally, I'm trying to avoid doing all of these, and I'm trying to focus only on $10,000 an hour activities or more. And so that looks a lot different now. A lot of times for me, that's having partnerships with companies like Epidemic Sound. So Epidemic Sound just invited me to be a panelist at South by Southwest. And they're a $1 billion music company. So for me, that's where I should be spending my time, is having more conversations with people like that who have $1 billion businesses. And you don't necessarily start out at a $10,000 an hour activity, but everyone starts out with the same amount of time in their day. And so if you can just get strategic about figuring out what are the few things that I'm currently doing that are actually the most valuable, that are the most profitable activities I can be doing, and immediately cut out any of these things that aren't providing value and focus on your highest value activities, I think that's a really powerful lifelong business skill and an exercise to come back to regularly. And consciously start to outsource these other things too. Because if you focus on these, that's going to generate enough income for you to be able to say, okay, so I can hire someone on the team, or I can bring in an intern, one of my fans who loves my music. Maybe they want to be involved on the team. And you could either bring them out as an intern, or you could pay them an hourly wage to come support you and be a part of your team. And that's a really high value exercise to do on at least once per year, where you do a time budget and look at how you're spending your time. Okay, so that's how it relates to your time. So if you ever feel like, man, I don't have enough time to be successful with my music, then you have just as much time as everyone else, but you just have to really get clear on where are you spending your time, and where can you basically perform alchemy. Like, where can you perform alchemy? How can you take the same amount of time that you have, but create more value using that same amount of time? So as this relates to your music career and your fan base, the 80-20 rule, this is how I would recommend, as you grow your audience, how you recommend improving your targeting so you can reach the right fans who are most likely to resonate. You can do this whether you're using ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact or the StreetTeam software. This is going to be a manual process if you're using anything but the StreetTeam software. But the reason that we built StreetTeam is basically to do the scoring for you automatically and help you create these lookalike audiences. But really, you can do this on any platform as long as you're tracking lifetime value for each of your fans. And so in this example, you can see here that there's these different layers of value. And when you're looking at the 80-20 rule, this diamond audience, right? The people who are at the top 20% of this circle are going to provide more value. They're going to provide more revenue than 80% of the entire circle, right? So this is where you really want to hone in and zero in on your most valuable fans. And so the way that we've broken this up is into these 5 different levels of audiences, everywhere from level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And the nickname for your level 1 audiences this is your hyper audience. So this is your top 100 people that are in a specific tier. So for example, your bronze audience, the top 75% of your fans in terms of lifetime value. So let's say that you had $100,000 that you generated and you had 10,000 fans, right? So this would be your top 7,500 fans in your entire audience. So with 7,500 fans, that would mean that you could basically create bronze 1 through 5 because you had 7,500. So the top 5,000 of your bronze audience, this would be your bronze 5. We call this your deep audience. When you create lookalike audiences on Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube, how it works is that the more people that you upload, the better idea that the algorithm has of who those people are. So ideally, you can upload more than enough data, so it's easy for them to distinguish, okay, who are these people? What are their demographics? What are their behaviors? But you can also, the minimum amount of people that you can upload to create a lookalike audience on Instagram and Facebook is 100 people. So the minimum is 100 people. You can create a lookalike audience based on it, but it's not necessarily going to have as much depth as an audience with more people. So the reason that we break this up is because we do see sometimes, let's say that you have a diamond audience and you upload and you create a lookalike audience based on your top 100 people in your entire street team. Sometimes this hyper audience is going to perform best, but sometimes having the deep audience, so you have your top 5,000 fans in your entire audience, this is going to outperform the hyper audience because there's more detail, there's more depth to the audience. And so that's why we recommend creating these 5 different levels of audience, because sometimes one of them just outperforms the other one. And it is nice to have the ability to have these 5 different levels based on the depth and how many people you're including. So in your StreetTeam scoring, and again, this is something that we've built the StreetTeam platform so we can streamline and simplify this as much as possible for you and create these lookalike audiences and just keep them up to date so that at any time you have these audiences based on your audience and the lifetime value for your fans. So you know who your most supportive fans are. And so the way that this works is that the top 75% of your fans are in the bronze level. Your top 50% are in the silver level. Your top 25% are in the gold level. Your top 10% are in the platinum level. And your top 5% in your entire audience are in your diamond level. One extra note about this is when you're creating lookalike audiences, ideally, being able to create your deep diamond audience is one of the most powerful audiences that you could create in terms of lookalike audiences. But in order to create this, you need to have 5,000 people in your audience that are at the diamond level, right? Because the amount of audience members to create a deep lookalike audience is 5,000 people. So if you wanted to create a deep lookalike audience based on your diamond fans, that would mean that you need 5,000 people who are diamond. And if those are 5% of your total fan base, that would mean that you would need 5,000 times 20. So you need 100,000 fans in your total fan base in order to create a deep lookalike audience based on your diamond fans, because out of 100,000 fans, 5,000 of them would be your diamond fans. Those would be your 5%, right? So in order to create your diamond 1 audience, you need to have 100 times 20. So you need to have at least 2,000 fans in your StreetTeam audience. And once you have 2,000 fans, and again, this is based on having their email address and or phone number as a contact in your StreetTeam account. So if you have 2,000 fans and you're keeping track of what's their lifetime value, who's purchased more, who's purchased less from you, your top 5% of fans, based on who's purchased the most from you, would be exactly 100 diamond fans out of 2,000 fans, right? So what I would recommend is starting with what you have, right? You wouldn't even be able to create a lookalike audience until you have at least 100 people in your StreetTeam total, right? You wouldn't be able to create your bronze lookalike audience until you have at least 125 total members in order for 75% of them to be bronze. And so what I would recommend is if you want to do this manually using any platform, Constant Contact or ActiveCampaign or anything, then you would keep track of, okay, how many total fans do I have? And absolutely make sure that you're keeping track of their lifetime value too. You need to make sure that how engaged these fans are and what they're actually purchasing from you and who are your most valuable fans. And if you know that, then once you have 125 fans in your StreetTeam, then I recommend exporting that list and creating your bronze hyper audience. Because now you have 125 people, so you have at least 100 people who are in your bronze 1 audience. So you can name it bronze 1 audience and upload that to Instagram and Facebook. We walked through how to create a lookalike audience earlier on in the series. So you can follow that training, but upload specifically your top 75% of fans in your entire StreetTeam. And once you do that, you'll actually be able to say, this is my bronze 1 audience. And you can create a lookalike audience. As soon as you have 250 people that are bronze or above, now you can create your bronze 2 lookalike audience. As soon as you have 500 people who are bronze or above, now you can create your bronze 3 audience. And so this is how you can create almost a game out of it. As you're growing your audience, you're creating different levels of targeting that are more focused, that are more honed in based on your highest quality fans. And again, this is really the purpose of the StreetTeam platforms. We wanted to help you identify who are your top fans, who are the most engaged, and help you reward those fans, identify them and reward them, make them feel special for being a fan. So you can give them special rewards, special access, special tiers of bonuses in exchange for being a part of your community, but also for you, so you know who those people are, you know what they have in common, you know who your top fans are. So when you create new campaigns and new targeting audiences, it's based on the people who resonate the most with your music. And you can work all the way up to when you have your first 100,000 fans, and then you can create your Diamond 5 lookalike audience. And that's when you know that you'll have reached the pinnacle of your StreetTeam success, is when you have 100,000 fans, you create your Diamond 5 audience. And probably what we'll do at our last Modern Musician Live, we started giving out awards to our artists that we've worked with in our Gold Arts Academy program. And so we started by giving out six-figure musician award and seven-figure musician award to our artists who are making either six figures or seven figures per year with their music. But one thing that I'm really excited about adding is some gamification or some awards based on hitting these different milestones. So I think that we'll have a StreetTeam award for when you hit your diamond, your deep diamond audience, and you'll probably win a StreetTeam Diamond Award. That basically means that you hit your first 100,000 fans in your StreetTeam account. So I'm definitely excited to kind of geek out and add those different awards to the platform. But for now, this is something that, again, you can do this on any platform you're using, whether it's ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact or any other one, MailChimp even. But you need to make sure that you're tracking lifetime value for your fans. And if you're using any other platform aside from StreetTeam, then you're going to have to set up your custom audiences manually. So you can export your list once you hit these goals, then upload it manually to these different platforms. Or if you're using StreetTeam, then on the left side of the platform, depending on when you're watching this, on the left side, when you log into StreetTeam, there'll be a menu bar item that says Create Lookalike Audiences. And that's going to be where you can find this automatic feature that's built into your StreetTeam platform. All right. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to stick around for a bit and answer any questions for you.
That's very kind. I really appreciate it. I have a couple of thoughts that they're not properly formed questions as such. As you were talking about the time, analysing the time, which is something that I've done to not quite as a degree as you have done it, but there's a well-being aspect to this as well, isn't there? Because if you don't get however many hours sleep it is, and I don't know, you probably don't get many with your family, and maybe you don't need as much as other people, famously people who don't need a lot of sleep. But some people, if they don't get 8 hours, they can't function and they're cranky. And I'm wondering how you account for that well-being and mindset. That's question one.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So in my opinion, it can be a little bit challenging to account for some things like that because there's not necessarily like a direct, oh, I sleep for 8 hours and now I made $1 million. That would be nice. But I account for those things in my own life as being $10,000 an hour activities, because I know that if I don't do that, then I'm not going to be able to function and I'm not going to be able to do all those other things that are required that are $10,000 an hour activities. And so I view things like sleep and everything that we walked through in the video about your morning ritual, the morning routine. We're talking about meditation and sleep and exercise and diet. All those things I view as like $10,000 an hour activities for sure. So that's just like where I would put those. Those are like a baseline foundation for being able to accomplish all the other things. And to answer your question around entertainment and time, because technically maybe I kind of like playing video games, or maybe I like watching TV, and there is a balance to it. It's not like, okay, you can never watch TV ever again thing. So the way that I look at it in my own life is that it's okay for me to, at the end of the night, after I've accomplished my work for the day and I've basically exhausted my willpower and I need time to just relax and let go, that's the time for me where I give myself space to watch an episode on TV or to play some video games. I grew up playing video games. I'm a huge video game nerd. And I know Elon Musk talks about like his love of video games. And so there is a balance to it. I think that entertainment and doing some of these things, there is a space and a time for it. But as it relates to your normal kind of work day and you're focused on your business and being more productive, that's what this is meant for. And I would recommend, before focusing on some of the things that don't provide value for anyone, focus on the things that are your most valuable activities. And therefore you'll have the space and the freedom to enjoy entertainment more, because you know that I've already put in my 4-hour work week to do the things that are $100,000 an hour activities.
And I'm guessing that if you have to fly to Alaska to do a show, or you have to go down to the bar at the end of the street, the travelling time and the effort and all those things get included in this calculation for $100,000 an hour. Those kind of things need to
Yeah,
be
yes and no. Yeah, that's a really good point. So what you'll find is when you look at things like for me, if I'm looking at like $10,000 an hour activities, which might be doing a masterclass for a JV partner that has hundreds of thousands of people in their audience, then that's a $10,000 an hour activity, but it didn't just kind of happen. Like it took work and preparation and a meeting, going through the systems. I would still think about, okay, 10,000. So that in that hour, it is $10,000 an hour activities because there's so much of that process. Now we do have a team and we have a strategic partner manager who does the reach out process, who invites those people onto our podcast. And now I only hop on like interviews with them for an hour, and I hop on a masterclass with our partners. And that's easily a $10,000 an hour activity for me. And a lot of those other things that are required in order to get to that spot are handled now by the team. So as long as you have the clarity to know, okay, this is actually the $10,000 an hour activity, and this is something that's a lot harder to delegate to someone else. Like this is something that I uniquely can do and show up. Then all the other things that are required in order to make it happen, they have more of a purpose now because they're all aligned towards that $10,000 hour activity.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And is there integration planned for the StreetTeam CRM to like financial systems? Because I've just come back off tour, I've made a few bits of sales. They're called cash sales, so I've got to put them back somehow into the system. I mean,
that's so exciting. Well, congrats, man. That's awesome. So it sounds like what you're asking is that now you're actually starting to make some sales and you want to make sure that you're tracking them correctly in your StreetTeam platform. Mm-hmm. So there are actually some pretty advanced things that you could do where you could set up this automation just using the workflows builder to automatically add these fans to your lookalike audiences based on when they make a purchase. So if you're tech savvy and you want to dig into this right now, using the Platinum edition of StreetTeam, you could automate this and create those custom audiences integrations where you add them to the audience, you remove them. The one thing that would be a little bit more tricky to manage is having the percentages of those fans based on their lifetime value. What you could do is you could create different audiences pretty easily where you could say, maybe you have $1,000 buyers, for example. And so when someone hits $1,000, you could actually set up a trigger here where you say contact changed, filter, LTV has changed. And then we could actually have a condition here where we say if else, LTV is greater than 1,000. And then we could say LTV is greater than 1,000. And you could actually do this but you could have it bucketed out. So you say greater than 500, etc. And then you could add them to these different custom audiences based on their lifetime value. And then you could say, these are my $1,000 plus fans, these are my $500 plus fans, my $100 plus fans, any of my fans who became customers in general. And it wouldn't necessarily be based on this percentage model, but honestly, like you doing this is going to put you so much further ahead than 99% of people because you actually are honing in your targeting and you're doing it based on your fans who are actually investing to support you.
What I need now is the fans to trigger it.
Yep, you got it. And definitely where I'd start out with that is just a few dollars a day, like $3 a day, the minimum amount. And if you have nothing to spend, then going out and going tour hacking is probably where I'd recommend getting your first $10,000 for meeting fans in lines for shows and then being able to invest that back into ads. All right, so that was day number 21 of 30 Days of Q&A. Hopefully you didn't geek out too much there, but again, we have the same amount of time. All of us have the exact same amount of time, but the difference is how do we spend that? And the idea that you can actually do less but earn more and be more productive with less time, less stress, is an idea worth pursuing. There's also one book recommendation I would make. I think it was called Essentialism. Yeah, it was called Essentialism, and it was really deep on this concept of doing less, getting more. And so I'd highly recommend checking that out. The 4-Hour Workweek is another good example of a book that goes really deep into this idea of the 80-20 rule and about doing less but getting more results, being more productive. And in that book, he talks through how he has a I forget what it was in the book. It's Tim Ferriss. So now he's probably approaching somewhere in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But he walked through how he achieves all the success in less than 4 hours a week that he was working. And it's pretty fascinating. It's a great book. So I would definitely recommend checking that out as well. And yeah, hope this is valuable. If you have any questions that you'd like to submit, you can click on the link in the description of the video. And if you like the video, if you got value from it, if you could do me a favor and smash the like button, that lets YouTube know that this has been valuable for you. And yeah, until next time. Yeah!